Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Republic of Sarah. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This was a drama-filled episode. So much went down. First and foremost, obviously, even just little by little, we continue to see Sarah and Paul's, relationship get more and more repaired. The fact is, it's she's stressed out because it's what if the government comes here to try to snatch you up? It's there's no extradition order. There's no extradition here, so they can't, even if they wanted to, but she's still nervous, which even he's it's the FBI came here and pushed me off the roof. Beforehand, until a couple weeks ago, you would have never just come over and just try to get a ladder to get me down or whatever. It's she's well, yeah, you're kind of growing on me. And she makes a comparison to a fungus or whatever. Because he was saying oh yeah, the dog will protect me or whatever. And it's yeah, but that looks not going to be fending off black suits coming to get you because he's afraid of marshmallows. I didn't even know. He's really? Marshmallows? But nevertheless. So that's all happening. But obviously, Greylock isn't out of the woodwork because of the flooding and everything. There's still a lot of repairs. The Glen is still flooded, and they've got to make a lot of repairs. A lot of the medical equipment was damaged and stuff like that. The high school is not completely dry. So the conversation is right, once the first load of money from the Cotan comes in, what are we going to do about it? Because repairing medical equipment is going to get expensive. I also love that Tyler is Maya's representative, and I love Liz is wait, so we're just doing that right now where we could get someone to be there standing, and it's just the conversation, just Liz, get over it. And it's all right, fine. So now it becomes a conversation about well, what do we what are they going to do when the money comes in, especially later on, because Danny finds out that Colton actually went up in price, so they're going to be getting an even bigger bump in money. But now the conversation is, well, what do we do with the money? Do we invest it in the town, or do we give everyone a stimulus check? That stimulus check will only be $13,000 for a lot of people. I think that was what it was going to be, but it's it's not a life-changing amount of money, but for some people it is. That's enough to get them through the next couple months so they figure stuff out. Especially it's complicated in AJ's case because her dad, a company is coming and buying up the place that her dad is staying at, and this company has a tendency to raise up the prices. So, and it was kind of a possibility, a rumor at first, but then AJ finds out no, the CEO confirmed it. So now she has to figure out what she's going to do, because if her dad stays there, she's barely keeping the payments afloat, and I think this extra bump in price would screw her over. And that means the nearest facility that could take care of her father in his conditions would be 6 hours away, and she can't be that far from her dad, so she would have to move. But Greylock is her home and everything, so she's coming at Sarah later on being I'm telling you about my dad's condition. I've never asked you for anything, Sarah. I'm asking you for this because that money, that stimulus check you give me could help me make sure my dad is able to stay here in Greylock. And the fact is, give me time, give me a buffer window until I can figure out what to do. But then Corinne also came to her earlier in the episode asking right, you're a former teacher. At the heart, you will always be a teacher looking after your students. So we need to put that money into this school to show hey, Greylock is a great school, a very progressive, the most, we want to put it on the map, show that people will look at our school and wow, that's such a progressive and very good, really, really good school, because that'll put them even more on the map. So at the end of the day, when the vote comes about, when it comes to the money at first, it's okay, Liz and AJ are about the stimulus check, whereas Danny and Tyler are about putting the money into Greylock, because he's because even Tyler's yeah, but who's to say anyone that gets that stimulus check, who's to say that they're going to actually spend that money in Greylock? They won't go outside, but AJ's but it's their money, they can spend it however they want to. But she's also coming from the perspective of right, she's using her situation to spread it to, But also, that's the thing. There's probably is a lot of people in Greylock who could use that money, but there's also other areas in Grey. Because part of me was, I don't know the ins and outs of the economics. I was hoping that, hey, because I was about to say, could we use half the money? Because basically, because of Lighton's deal, Greylock is going to get 2/3 of the money. So of what they would get from the Colton, they get 2/3 of it. My thought was could we at least spend half of that money on the economy, and then the other half gets passed around as a stimulus check. But then, like, once you do that, like, that 13,000 will get lower. Like, that might become 8,000, and then it, like, or, you know, 5, well, whatever the case may be, like, it's going to be probably substantially less. So it's like, well, some arguments probably could be like, well, that's still something, but it's not as much as it was. That 13,000 is a life-changing amount of money. 5,000-7,000 might not be, and it barely tips over into being like, it can get me by. So that's where I was kind of hoping the conversation would go, but it's kind of like an all or nothing. Like, there's no split, because, like, I guess splitting it wouldn't make the difference needed, like, on the economic level, but also on a personal level. It wouldn't be enough if you split it, so it has to be all or nothing. Once again, I don't know that, like, I'm not well versed in economics on whether or not that would be enough, especially with everything they've got to fix post flood, plus everything, like, everyone's just dealing with on an individual level. So now it's another circumstance where Sarah's vote comes down to being, well, the vote. So she's got to deal with all of that. And ultimately, talking to her dad is actually what inspired her to actually choose what she ended up choosing, and that was choosing the economy. Because what ultimately ended up happening is that her dad talked about what's good for the pack is good for the wolf, not the other way around. It's not a mutually exclusive thing the other way around, because it's like, right, basically by helping put Greylock on the map, I guess the argument could be that in the long run it can help AJ, but if you put AJ or like the individual's need above like the entire pack, it's not always going to be it's going to not be a mutually exclusive thing. Like, it is going to be like, right, it might help them, but it might hurt the economy in the long run. So it's not an easy solution, because even Sarah tried to put it to a vote to the town, and it literally came down to a deadlock even on the votes there. And even Sarah's like, really? So it comes down to her again. So, but even her dad was like, right, but don't forget the sacrifices. And that was a whole point, like, with the whole Grover's house, as well as the other house that had to be destroyed, you know, so they could get to the Colton in that area. So that element to it kind of comes back in this case of like, right, but you don't forget about the sacrifices either. So, like, there's no, heavy is the head that wears the crown, is like having to make these difficult choices. Because even Sarah's like, yeah, I'm in a position where I have to make a lot of difficult choices, but she hasn't been in a position where she's actually had to make those difficult choices necessarily. So there's that. On a more personal level, like, Grover's moving into his new place, and he got Tyler to help, and Tyler found Patience's camera, and Grover's like, oh yeah, everything in that bag or whatever, like, related to the camera you can keep. But then it turns out that the camera, like, there was filmed stuff, and it was of Patience and Grover, which Grover wasn't aware that was in there. So when Tyler, like, watched it, because it was very personal stuff that he watched, it was there. It's like he lost a little bit of what was theirs. It was kind of taken away a little bit by Tyler watching it. But he also like cut it together and put music on it. So, like, I can understand one side of things of, like, because Tyler was under the impression, it's like, oh no, Grover's doing good. Like, he thought, like, because even Grover was kind of like, no, therapy's going good, so I don't, but it's like, right, like, he didn't think about the fact is that there will be certain triggers that kind of make you fall apart again. But he ends up watching Tyler's video, and I was wondering, I was like, they have to show Patience, because if they don't, it's going to be even sadder, because it's like, right, the entire video is from her perspective, but it's like, no, they show Patience. We finally get to see, the actress who portrays her. So, but it was a really sweet video, especially when you add the music on top of it. I didn't talk about it the other day, but, like, I do get in that fit sometimes where, like, I have to look up a song. There was that song, it's called State Lines. I'm blanking on it's like Novo something. I'm blanking on it. Like, I heard it, like, in this show. It was that scene between Corinne and Danny. I didn't talk about it. I looked that up, and I've been listening to that a couple times. I don't know. It's like that. It's like haunting beauty to, like, the way it's sung and just the lyrics themselves. I don't know. I've really dug that song for the reason. It's just one of those things that kind of came to my mind. But at the end of it, though, Grover ends up, because Tyler, like, that was going to be his project for Corinne's class, was going to, it's like, right, we can find, something literary and, like, artistic, and he wants to basically do what he did for Grover and Patience's video. He wants to do that for everyone in town to kind of get their stories across, And Grover's like, I'm sorry for, how can I get mad at you for doing what I gave you permission to do? So at the end of the day, going forward, like this bag, it is all yours again. And the fact of the matter is, because patients would love knowing that someone like you, Tyler, like was doing what you're doing with this project. So, and I think for him too, Grover thanked him because it's like, at the end of the day, you got me thinking about some good stuff, because that's the thing of like, and I haven't been to that extent, but I've been like that with relationships. I always kind of bring it back to that, because that's my, like, I mean, I've lost people, and the thing is, you do kind of get stuck on those negative moments. I mean, not like relationship wise, but obviously like family. I've had like grandparents pass and stuff like that, but the comparison I can make is on that level, but also relationships. I have a tendency to focus on the more negative side of relationship, where I'm like, no, it wasn't all bad. They were good too. And so with his situation, all he can think about, like all he could ever focus on was like losing patience that last year they had together, her being sick and all that. And I think for him, it reminded him of like, no, there was good times too that he kind of lost a little sight of because of losing her. So I think there was like a beauty to that, where it's just like, no, like you actually gave me a gift of like, right, like it's not just the bad, like there was good. Like I can't like let Patience being gone, that last year together, her being sick, I can't let that also take away all the happy and good time memories. Like I hadn't thought about that. So seeing them all in that video that Tyler had made actually helped him a lot too. I think that will be a big part of his recovery process as well. So there's that element to it. Another interesting side of this episode. Speaking of Tyler, Bella is being an assistant for Sarah, which I love that. She was like, I love spreadsheets. Like, I really love them. And Sarah's kind of reluctant to take on an assistant, but it's like, right, I've been telling everyone we need more spreadsheets. So that's pretty cool. And like, she's super on top of it. It's like, I think with like Bella's like, she's almost got that type A mentality and like personality to a certain extent, that she's like on top of things. She's very due diligent, so it makes her the perfect assistant, especially because she's like, yeah, I've been hearing about all the fun like Tyler and Maya have had, like, being a part of this. She's always wanted to be a part of this from the very beginning. Her dad just kind of kept her from it. So I figured, I was like, would your dad have issue with this? But it's like, right, you kind of moved past a lot of that. It's kind of like, right, you've kind of been able to kind of have a little bit more freedom, because you and your dad have kind of opened up more about it. You've had a more open dialogue about that. So she's able to kind of spread her wings a little bit more. So I thought the reason why Sarah was hesitant to bring her on, because like, right, your dad's not the biggest fan of me and all this stuff that I've been doing for Greylock. So there's that. So that was an interesting element. There's the whole situation between Danny and Sarah's mom and dad. She confronts Paul, and she starts. It's interesting because last episode I was kind of defending her by being like, right, she might, because this is where we get the blow up. Like the last episode, they had their small one scene together. This episode, like that scene was still smaller, but it was still like not as small. It was a little bit bigger, and she was lashing out at him because it's like, right, you're like, oh, almost 2 decades later, you're popping back into your kid's life, you're running away. He's like, well, you need to kind of put 2 and 2 together. It wasn't them I was running from, it was you. And it turns out I wasn't the only one running from you. And so it's like, oh, she's like, oh yeah, it must look, oh yeah, keep looking down on me from your high horse. He was like, oh, it must not, it's not actually that high. It might look high from your perspective down there in the ditch. It's like, ooh, they're going at each other. And then she blames him. She's like, did you ever, like, the fact is, you leaving is the why to happen. He's like, wow, you're blaming me for what you did? You're unbelievable. Because I was saying last episode, it's like, I was like, right, at least she's not blaming him, because I thought she wouldn't do that. And literally the next episode, she does do that, because the whole point of recovery is taking responsibility for your actions. Yes, other people may have played a role, but it's like, you're still passing the buck. And even she's like, yes, I did what I did, but your dad, he's just so frustrated. He doesn't realize like he did. But then at the end of the day, Sarah's like, right, you had to take responsibility for your own actions. I love that you are doing better, Mom, but you will never fully recover if you don't take responsibility for the fact is your part to play in everything. You can't blame me, you can't blame Dad, you can't blame Danny for what you did. And that was kind of like the cold hard truth. So she even goes to Paul later on and kind of apologizes. And even he's like, yeah, I'm sorry, like I wasn't there, like I should have never left this family behind, like I should have never left the kids, I should have never left you. Despite the issues or whatever, like I might not have pushed you over the edge, but I sure as hell wasn't there to catch you when you fell. It's like, oh, we're both terrible parents. And he's like, yeah, there's room for improvement. And it's like, yeah. I was like, wow, you two are clicking. Even to the point later on when Sarah's about to do her presentation, I love both of them giving her advice. Like her mom gives her advice, and then her dad's like, no, don't do that. Do the opposite of what your mom just said. And they're looking at each other, and he's just like, okay. And it's just like, it's like, oh, he's like, what if you do that? Like, you were good in that place. And her mom was like, yeah, but she didn't even sing. It's like, but she's not going to sing. You're not going to sing, are you? She's like, no, of course I'm not going to sing. It's like, could you both stop? They're like, we're just trying to help. She's like, yeah, but you're both parenting right now. And I just stop it. Just stop it. It's weird. They were kind of on the same wavelength. It was kind of weird of like, right. Both of them have issues as parent, when it comes to being parents. But in that moment, they were kind of parenting her. It was actually kind of cute in its own way. I really thought it was actually kind of adorable, but it also shows the gap being bridged between them. So there's that. Then we get to the real nasty side of things. Well, like, first and foremost, Corinne and Adam are on a date, and while she's in the bathroom, Grover and Danny show up there, and then Adam confronts him and is like, yeah, and Grover's like, yeah, Danny's like, yeah, why don't we get out here? And Grover's like, yeah, and they're leaving, and Adam starts talking mad crap. He's been drinking a little bit, because he ordered another drink. I thought Corinne was going to be like, oh, shouldn't you slow down? I thought that's what was going to happen, but it never did, because she probably doesn't want to, like, muddy the waters. So Adam starts going off on him about, like, oh, like, Piper, and it's just like, Danny's like, don't even go there, and blah blah blah, because it's like, oh, you left your family behind, you left your fiance, oh, you left your girlfriend, and now you left your fiance. It's like Adam was just drunk and angry, and he was lashing out. I thought this was going to go back to what he was bringing up last episode, like he was going to, like, screw Danny over. I thought what he was going to do is he wanted Danny to instigate a fight. He was instigating it, but he was hoping I thought he was going to hope that Danny lands the first blow, because the moment Danny does, then he's going to get Danny fired from Light. And I thought that's where that was going to go. It totally didn't. They scuffled a little bit, but Grover pulled him off. And then he looked and sees a little skeleton. I was like, I figured that was going to piss him off. Because I thought what he was going to do was he was going to grab Danny's key, go to Danny's place and wait for him, or at least, like, trash his place or something. But no, he goes back later on, comes home, and he's pointing. It's like, right, I recognize the skeleton. You have one too. You still kept it, it's like, you're still in love with him. And she's like, I tried not to be. He's like, get out, leave. I'm like, damn, that sucks. Once again, he's in the right to feel the way he does. Then the moment she comes back and Josh isn't there, I was like, he took him. I was like, no, you took Josh. This is not good. He's like, even that, yeah, we're in Philadelphia. I'm taking him over to my brother's place. You're going to get a divorce paper. I was like, yeah, now it's official. Like, once again, even last episode, I was like, I think he's going to the extreme, but I'm like, I get it. Whatever you need to feel better, sure. But him doing it, I was like, you're crossing the line now. Because, doing what you're doing, trying to get the moment he was like, and I'm going to go for sole custody, I was like, this is no longer about just the affair. It's because you're hurt. Your pride is hurt. Your feelings were hurt, which you're justified to be angry. But to try and take your child away from his mother is where you're crossing the line. Because this isn't about doing what, because later on he tries to pretty out like, oh, what I'm doing from, it's like, no. This is about hurting Corinne. You're hurt right now, and you're just hurt. Like, you want to hurt her. You want her to feel the pain. It's like, because your issues with Corinne right now, her transgressions, that's between you. That has nothing to do with her capabilities as a mother. Because he starts throwing out stuff like during the deposition or whatever. Like, what ended up happening was like, we didn't get to see it, but the lawyer started trashing on her, using everything up until like what we've seen in the show so far of like her lashing out at Liz. He's trying to say like, oh, her judgment. Oh, look at Greylock, blah, 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 blah. Even talking mad shit about Sarah, being like, oh, what kind of the leader she is, and it's not a place. I'm not going to. It's like, no. If that's the case, where were all these complaints beforehand? Maybe you were like, oh, that, I'm gonna keep my complaints to myself. It's like, you wait till the most advantageous moment to try and trash Greylock, because now that's supposed to make Corinne seem like an unfit mother. But it's like, what about all those years prior to like Greylock's most recent circumstances? It hasn't even been a full year, because I think in totality, like, this show's probably taking course over this entire season is taking course over the course of a couple months. So it's like, so is that supposed to undo all the good, you know, it's like, right, you weren't, what about when she was hurt and Danny saved her? It's like, but you're so blinded by your rage. You're so blinded at trying to hurt her, you can't see anything else because, and even Corinne was like, I melted down, I lost my cool, and I didn't help my case because Danny ended up hooking her up with a lawyer. I thought he was going to be a lawyer, but it's like, right, probably would have been a conflict of interest type of thing, but it's like, even being like, yeah, like, don't worry, I'm gonna pay it out. But she's like, no, this isn't a gift, it's a loan. Like, I will pay you back because she doesn't want to feel indebted to Danny because it's like she's trying to cut all ties with him, you know? Her attempt to save her marriage and everything, and it fell apart like this. Like I said, I think Adam's, it's understandable for him to be angry. He has every right to be, but like, that doesn't, like, this is going to turn it, like, this is where you get into nasty divorces. And the person that suffers the most at the end is like, divorces are already hard, but it, like, this could have easily been an amicable thing, but it's just he wants to hurt Corinne, and he's just so angry right now, he doesn't even realize that. And that's the sad aspect of that. So Corinne's got to deal with the aftermath of that. And so all that's happening. Sarah presents her ideas to the Greylock. Obviously, AJ's like, right, you did what you had to do. I lost this vote. I just won't lose next time. I was like, what does that mean? That sounds a little, like, ominous. Now, I'm about to get into that later on what I think that means. But then Corinne comes to Sarah about everything after, like, okay, Sarah's breathing like, she's like, I presented what I need to present. But Corinne came to her breaking down like, oh, I'm going to lose. And the moment, like, Sarah's holding her and that look on her face, oh, you're about to drop a bomb. She's like, Adam isn't Josh's dad. I was like, I knew it. I shouldn't have doubted myself. I knew she was lying, but the thing is, like I said, the way it was filmed, they did a good job hiding it because Sarah, while she was hugging Corinne, like, yeah, Adam is his dad. And that moment, like, she was smiling but in reality, it's because she thought she was doing what was best for her friend. Because even now she's like, you said that you wanted it to be Adam. You needed it to be Adam. But yes, it's Danny's. This way, Danny does have custody rights so, as a biological dad, so you won't. But now it's like Corinne's like, wait, you've lied to me. Like, you had no right to do that. But it's like Sarah, what she's always trying to do. She's a human. She makes mistakes. Like, you can't falter someone for being human, you know? Because she's supposed to be held to this high standard because she's this leader and everything, but also it's like, you're my best friend, like, how could you lie to me? Because it's like, but that's also the thing of like, you wanted it to be Adam, like, how would things, because the thing is, at the end of the day, it was Corinne's choice. You should have told her because she had every right to know, like, who was the dad. It's like, even if it threw her life into chaos, that was still her choice to make what she was going to do. You took that choice away from her. Yes, Corinne wanted it and needed it to be Adam, but because also it came from the place of, because more so than anything, Sarah at that time strongly believed what was going on when Danny was just a fling. That's also why she was so dismissive of it. Like, no, there's nothing there. But then the other episode, she was like, no, last episode, she was like, no, I do love Danny. And that took Sarah by surprise because she wasn't expecting that. She thought it was like, right, you're just recapturing old feelings. Like, wait, it's not just, high school love. It's like, you know, it's not just like love from all those years ago. It's like, no, like, you still love him. You still feel that way. Now, she thought it was nothing more than kind of like the resurgence of puppy love, nostalgia, not realizing like, no, there was more to it. That connection was revitalized, you know? And so that, believing that what was happening between Danny and Corinne was just a fling, just like I said, that nostalgia, that's why, what made her think like, right, what you and Adam have, is like, that's why, that now in retrospect, it does explain it even more, why she was pushing so hard for Adam and Corinne to get back together. Like, it's like, repair your relationship, you know? Because at the end of the day, you still, she tries to believe like that's what Corinne wanted and she tried to abide by her friend's rules. But it's also like, it's because there's some part of you that like, no, my brother shouldn't be in your life. You shouldn't be, because like on some level, I think there's some part of her brain that's like, yeah, my brother not only abandoned me, like, so her abandonment issues dealing with their dad and now associating that with her brother. Like, I think that's why she was like, no, you can't trust Danny to be in your life. So she's probably like, Danny wouldn't have been a good fit. He would have just run away like her dad did, like he did 6 years ago, like Danny did 6 years ago. So, and it's like the moment that happens, I was like, no. And then Bella comes running. I was like, the mic is on, isn't it? And it's like everyone in town heard that. It's like now Corinne's business is out there for the entire town to hear. And just in that moment, Sarah sinks to the ground. I was like, I feel so bad for Sarah. everything went from bad to worse. Now this is when things are going to get real nasty, because now everyone's going to use this against Sarah. It's like, whoa, she's lying to her best friend. She's not the person that should be leading. Now this is where I think AJ is going to step up and be like, for one, calling her out, because like, how could you lie to your best friend like that? Boom, like, we're supposed to be tight. Now using like her little bit of resentment towards Sarah because of her decisions, now it's going to, I think everyone's going to vote Sarah out, and AJ's going to try to become the new leader. Like, I'm going to try and run things. That's my thought process. I know it's going to be a weird comparison to make. It's like Walt and Branch from Longmire. It's a weird comparison to make, but like, you know, the new sheriff and stuff like that, that whole competition between them, I think it's going to turn into that a little bit, which I think next episode is going to get real nasty on so many levels. Like, once again, like, now that that's out there, the entire town's going to view Sarah a certain way, because it's like, wow, if she's lying to her best friend, like, because it's going to start compounding. It's like, right, the Maya situation, now this, like, now they're going to start questioning her leadership. It's like, right, you put on that presentation, but like, how can we say you've got our best interests at heart? Like, how do we know you're not lying to us? Because you know Liz is probably going to throw that in her face next episode. I think AJ might, just because of current circumstances, because she might try to rework everything, because like, right, you can't be trusted. I'm going to do what I believe is best. I get it. You try to do what you believe to be best. I mean, Danny's not going to appreciate this, because yes, you didn't know that Danny was the dad initially, but you've known for a little while now, and you've been lying to Corinne and Danny, knowing the truth. So it's like, that's the thing of like, she tried to do the right thing. She tried to do the right thing for everyone across the board, and now it's coming up and blowing up in her face. And next episode is going to be wild. Next episode is the season finale. It's going to be wild to see how this all plays out, how they end up wrapping up this season, because I don't expect everything to be a tight, neat little bow. There's going to be some, like, friendships are going to be twisted and turned, and just like, obviously, Danny and Sarah are in a better place now. They're probably not going to be in a good place now because of this. Like I said, I won't see Sarah and AJ seeing eye to eye next episode. I think everything that could go wrong went wrong in this moment. So it's going to be so fascinating to see ultimately how they wrap the season up. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.